Tonight, we begin our serene journey toward one of the most poetic destinations in our solar system, Saturn, the planet whose shimmering rings have captivated every stargazer who has ever lifted their eyes to the cold, ancient sky. As we drift gently outward from Earth, past the soft blue halo of our home, the darkness becomes velvet, and the silence of space grows deeper, warmer, more embracing. Saturn waits far ahead, a lantern of pale gold, suspended in the quiet gulf beyond Jupiter, turning slowly through winds older than human memory. Let us set forth on this tranquil voyage, guided not by urgency, but by curiosity, by wonder, and by the soothing rhythm of cosmic distance. In this journey, facts become soft stepping stones, and science becomes a cradle that rocks you gently into rest. Ahead lie rings made of ice and dust, moons shaped by fire and water, and storms that have spun for centuries. Yet tonight, they speak softly, welcoming us into a world where even the wildest forces unfold at a peaceful, measured pace. Breathe in, breathe out, and let the starlight carry you. If you find comfort and rest in these long, sleepy space journeys, consider supporting the channel and helping us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Every small gesture keeps these calming explorations alive and allows more dreamers to drift among the stars with us. Thank you truly for being here. As our journey begins, we leave behind the familiar inner planets, where sunlight is warm and intense, and drift slowly toward the vast, colder realms where Saturn resides. The transition is gradual, like walking from a sunlit meadow into the cool quiet of a deep forest. Behind us, Earth becomes a soft blue bead, wrapped in whirls of white cloud. Mars retreats into a rust-colored spark. Past Jupiter's colossal form, we feel the solar wind thinning, its gentle push weakening as we glide farther from the sun's glowing hearth. The outer solar system is spacious beyond comprehension. Here, distance stretches like a long, calm breath. Light takes more than an hour to reach beyond Jupiter, and by the time it finds Saturn, it has faded to just a fraction of its strength. Yet Saturn glows, not brightly, not sharply, but tenderly, like a pearl catching the last light of a dying day. Its rings, though immense, shimmer as a soft, silvery ellipse, even from afar. As we move outward, temperatures fall into deep, soothing stillness. Molecules slow, vibrations hush, and the vacuum itself feels heavy with silence. Saturn's gravity begins to whisper, a faint tug, steady and welcoming, as if inviting us into its ancient orbit. This region is the frontier between warmth and cold, between the familiar and the mythic. Travelers through history once imagined it as the boundary of creation itself. You may notice how time stretches here. In Saturn's distant neighborhood, our sense of urgency dissolves, orbits lengthen, seasons last for years. Even the sun becomes merely another star in the sky, and with every mile, we drift not only through space, but deeper into calm. The journey has only begun, yet already the universe feels slower, older, and immensely peaceful. Saturn is near enough now that its golden orb feels like a beacon guiding us forward, an invitation to learn, to relax, and to dream. Saturn gradually grows from a distant glow into a full, majestic world, and our first clear sight of it feels almost ceremonial. The planet appears pale gold, its color shaped by sunlight, filtered through layers upon layers of atmospheric haze. Unlike Jupiter's bold stripes, Saturn wears soft gradients, golds melting into creams, creams into muted grays, like watercolor washed gently across its surface. As we approach, the famous rings separate into distinct arcs, bright yet delicate, shimmering with icy reflections. From far away, they seem solid, as if carved from polished silver. But we will soon learn their true nature. Billions of small particles, each reflecting sunlight, like tiny mirrors. For now, though, simply observe Saturn's calm rotation. A day here lasts barely 10.5 hours, Yet the world seems in no hurry. Its winds, though fast, sweep around the planet in enormous bands, so smooth and uniform that they look like the brushstrokes of a careful artist. Saturn spins like a dream, quiet, steady, never abrupt. We drift closer still, feeling the elegant balance between the planet's immense mass and the gentle sparkle of its rings. Even from a distance, the rings cast shadows upon the planet, forming lines of darkness that shift slowly as Saturn tilts through its long seasons. These shadows are subtle, fleeting, almost like eyelids in half-sleep. Saturn's atmosphere, made mostly of hydrogen and helium, is so light and fluid that the planet bulges at its equator, giving it a slightly flattened shape. This gentle distortion makes Saturn appear even more graceful, as though it were shaped by soft cosmic hands. In this moment, hovering just outside the realm of Saturn's rings, you may feel a sense of reverence. Humans have stared at this distant world through telescopes for centuries, imagining what it would be like to stand here, suspended beside a planet of gold. We now drift into the outer edges of Saturn's ring system, a realm so expansive that if the rings were placed around Earth, they would stretch from the surface nearly to the moon. And yet, despite their immensity, the space between particles is surprisingly vast. This gives the rings their ethereal quality, dense enough to catch light, open enough to move through with gentle grace. At this distance, the rings no longer look like a single smooth band. Instead, they divide into countless thin structures, ringlets, each shimmering like frost on morning grass. Every particle within them, whether a fine grain of dust or a chunk of ice the size of a mountain, orbits Saturn in perfect balance. They never collide violently because they all follow the same circular paths, guided by gravity's quiet choreography. As we drift deeper, the light around us becomes diffuse and crystalline. Sunlight scatters off the icy fragments, creating glittering halos and soft reflections that seem to pulse with the rhythm of Saturn's rotation. It feels as though we are floating through a slow-motion snowfall, frozen in time. The temperature here is astonishingly cold, around -180 degrees Celsius, but the silence and stillness are soothing rather than harsh. It's a place where the universe seems to breathe gently, where even the smallest fragment of ice has a story written in its crystalline structure, a story of formation, collision, reshaping, and survival over billions of years. As we continue inward, the rings reveal gaps, vast, dark lanes, carved by the gravitational influences of Saturn's many moons. Each gap is like a road, a space created by worlds that dance in resonance with the rings, sweeping paths clean with every orbit. These lanes are reminders that the rings are not static. They evolve, shift, and ripple in response to the movements of the moons around them. In the distance, faint waves ripple across ring surfaces, as if the rings themselves were breathing. These waves are caused by passing moons whose gravity pulls ever so slightly on the ring particles, creating gentle patterns that travel across thousands of kilometers. Within this quiet ballet of dust and ice, we find a profound sense of calm, an entire system moving in harmony, preserved for ages, whispering softly through its shimmering fragments. Ahead of us lies one of the most striking features of Saturn's rings, the Cassini division, a wide, dark band separating the bright A and B rings. Though it appears empty from afar, this division is not a void. It is a region where particles are far less dense, thinned out by the gravitational influence of the moon Mimas, whose orbital resonance clears this vast pathway. Entering the Cassini division feels like drifting into a shadowed river between shining shores. On either side, bright rings continue to sparkle, but here the light dims, softened by the scarcity of ice fragments. Tiny particles still glide around us, whispering the story of how this space was shaped. Mimas, orbiting Saturn like a quiet shepherd, pulls on the particles with a steady rhythm, gently ushering them away and maintaining this dark channel. From within the division, the scale of Saturn's rings becomes even more awe-inspiring. The A ring to our right gleams with clarity, each ripple and wave highlighted by sunlight. To our left, the B ring shines more densely, almost opaque in places, and between them, where we now drift, the subtle beauty of emptiness unfolds. Here, the temperature dips even further, and the shadows lengthen. The rings above and below cast long, faint lines across Saturn's atmosphere. It is a region of contrast, darkness embraced by brilliance, like the pause between two musical notes. Looking down towards Saturn, the planet's cloud tops appear calm and distant, wrapped in layers of soft haze. The Cassini division gives us a quiet vantage point, a moment suspended between two vast, luminous realms. This place reminds us that even in the universe's grand designs, spaces of stillness serve a purpose. They create boundaries, balance forces, and offer moments of quiet amid brilliance. And in this moment, drifting through the division, we can feel the universe speaking softly in the language of gravity and light. We now approach the A ring, one of the most visually striking regions of Saturn's ring system. From a distance, it resembles a radiant, unbroken band, but as we near it, the illusion dissolves. The A ring is a world of countless particles, icy, ancient, and moving in perfect synchrony. The outer edge of the A ring shimmers like powdered diamond. Sunlight refracts through ice crystals and bounces from surface to surface, filling this region with a gentle, pearly glow. Each fragment orbits Saturn independently, yet all together they form a collective harmony, like a choir singing in soft unison. Moving through the A ring is like drifting through a gently flowing river of frozen light. The density is higher here, and we see more particles than before, some as small as grains of sand, others the size of boulders. Their motion is peaceful, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Even the larger chunks move gracefully, maintaining the ring's structure through finely balanced gravitational interactions. We notice faint bands and gaps running through the A ring, created by resonant patterns with Saturn's moons. These natural intervals shape the ring's structure, giving it its layered beauty. Among them lies the famous Inky Gap, home to the tiny moon Pan, which orbits within the opening like a vigilant guardian. Though Pan is small, its influence is profound. It sweeps the gap clear, keeping this corridor open across thousands of kilometers. The closer we drift, the more the ring reveals its delicate textures. Light scatters softly, creating halos that shimmer around every icy fragment. It feels like being inside a vast, slow-moving snowfall, suspended in the silence of space. The A ring marks the beginning of the inner sanctum of Saturn's ring system. Ahead, more wonders await: moons with hidden oceans, storms that span continents, and mysteries carved by time and gravity. For now, we rest here, gently drifting among fragments of ancient ice, listening to the quiet rhythms of a world sculpted by cosmic forces older than memory. As we glide deeper into the A ring, a narrow, perfectly carved corridor opens before us. The Inky Gap, a clean line etched through the icy expanse. From afar, it resembles a thread pulled gently through satin. Up close, we see that this space is alive with subtle motion, dust motes, tiny ice crystals, and faint waves caused by the presence of a small but mighty sculptor, Pan, the shepherd moon. Pan drifts near the center of the Inky Gap, like a quiet guardian. Only about 35 kilometers across, it resembles a little walnut in shape, an odd ridged world created by accretion of ring material along its equator. Its gravity, though weak, is persistent. Each orbit, Pan sweeps the gap, gently nudging particles aside, maintaining this celestial pathway with a regularity as old as the ring system itself. As we float alongside the moon, the environment feels strangely peaceful. Despite the immense speed at which everything orbits Saturn, the relative calm within the gap makes it appear as though we are locked in place, watching delicate ripples propagate outward from Pan's gravitational influence. These ripples extend thousands of kilometers through the A-ring, like sound waves frozen in crystal. Light behaves differently here. Without dense clouds of ice to scatter it, the sun's rays fall more cleanly, illuminating Pan with a soft, pale glow. Shadows sharpen along the moon's ridges, and the edges of the gap glimmer like frost, traced in silver. Pan itself seems timeless, an ancient caretaker, faithfully sweeping its path through eternity. And yet, the gap is not empty. Tiny grains drift here, pushed and pulled by Saturn's gravity and Pan's periodic sweeping. Their slow, graceful motion adds a sense of dreamlike fluidity, as though we are watching the pulse of a sleeping world. As the little moon moves ahead of us, we linger for a moment. The Enki Gap is a reminder that the universe's grand designs often depend on its smallest architects. Here, in the silence between rings, Pan keeps watch, preserving harmony in the vast expanse of Saturn's realm. Leaving the Enki Gap behind, we drift into a region where the A-ring begins to ripple, subtle undulations shaping the ice in patterns that resemble the surface of a still lake, touched by wind. These are density waves and bending waves, the frozen music of gravity echoing through Saturn's rings. At first, the waves appear delicate, almost imperceptible, but as our eyes adjust to the shimmering light, the patterns reveal themselves: tight spirals, soft crescents, and evenly spaced ridges that rise and fall like silent heartbeats. Each formation is the result of gravitational resonance, moons tugging rhythmically on ring particles, transmitting energy across unimaginable distances. To the right, a tight spiral pattern winds across thousands of kilometers. This spiral is caused by the influence of the moon Prometheus, whose orbital rhythm plucks at the ring like fingers grazing harp strings. The particles respond not with sound, but with movement, arranging themselves into waves that drift outward with gentle precision. Further ahead, we see bending waves, vertical oscillations that tilt ring particles ever so slightly above and below the ring plane. These waves cast faint shadows, creating lace-like patterns when sunlight strikes them at low angles. The effect is mesmerizing, an interplay of light and darkness woven into shifting mathematical grace. If we listen closely, not with ears, but with imagination, we can sense the harmony of these movements. Each wave corresponds to a beat in the cosmic dance, each crest and trough shaped by the eternal pull of Saturn's moons. No two waves are identical, yet all follow the laws of gravity with fluid obedience. Occasionally, a larger chunk of ice disrupts the uniformity, carving a temporary trail as it passes. But soon the waves absorb the disturbance, returning to their elegant equilibrium. The rings are resilient, always finding their rhythm again. Here, among these ripples, time feels immense. These waves can persist for decades, even centuries, slowly drifting, slowly changing, carrying the memory of each moon's influence like a gentle echo. Floating through this region, we become part of the rhythm. One more element, drifting softly within the frozen symphony of Saturn's rings. Further outward from the A-ring lies one of Saturn's most enigmatic structures, the F-ring, a narrow, shifting, unpredictable band shaped by both harmony and chaos. From a distance, it looks like a thin, bright filament, but as we approach, its complexity becomes astonishing. The F-ring is wilder than the others. Instead of a smooth plane, it forms braided strands, clumps, kinks, and spiraling structures that appear and vanish within weeks or even days. This dynamic nature comes from the interaction of two moons, Prometheus and Pandora, the so-called shepherd moons that flank the ring on either side. Prometheus periodically dips closer to the F-ring, pulling at it with its gravity and creating long channels that stretch outward like threads being teased from fabric. Pandora, orbiting just beyond, helps maintain the ring's outer edge, though its role is more subtle. Together, the two act like hands tugging gently in opposite directions, shaping and reshaping the F-ring's delicate structure. As we draw closer, we see bright knots of material, temporary clumps that drift within the ring. Some are as small as boulders, others the size of houses. They form when particles collide and stick together, only to be pulled apart again by passing moons. Each clump is a fleeting world, a momentary sculpture of ice, destined to disperse. The light here is particularly soft because the Feth ring is so thin. Sunlight glints sharply off individual particles, creating shining streaks across the dark backdrop of space. At certain angles, the ring seems to glow from within, a thin halo pulsing with cosmic tension. The Feth ring's instability makes it a kind of living artifact, constantly changing, never settling. Scientists once believed Saturn's rings were static, ancient structures, but the F ring teaches us that even in the cold and quiet depths of space, there is movement, growth, erosion, and rebirth. Drifting beside this restless ribbon, we feel a sense of delicate impermanence. The universe, even at its grandest scales, is not fixed. It evolves, shifts, and breathes. And here, amid the braided threads of the Feth ring, that truth reveals itself in shimmering, ever-changing beauty. After leaving the lively turbulence of the Feth ring, we begin a gentle inward drift, crossing the broad space between Saturn's outer rings and the inner ones. This region, though seemingly empty, holds its own quiet grandeur. The absence of dense ice allows us a fuller view of Saturn itself, an immense sphere glowing with pale gold and framed by the arcs of its rings. As we move closer, Saturn grows in the sky until it begins to dominate our entire field of vision. Its cloud bands, subtle but distinct, stretch around the planet like soft ribbons of cream and muted ochre. The equatorial bulge becomes more noticeable now, revealing the planet's rapid rotation and fluid nature. The space between ring systems feels like a wide, calm corridor. Tiny wandering particles float here, strays from the rings or remnants of ancient collisions. They drift slowly, following their own meandering paths, subtly influenced by gravitational currents. These particles sparkle faintly as sunlight catches them, like lanterns floating in deep water. Below us, the planet's upper atmosphere appears smooth from afar, but patches of swirling motion reveal the presence of powerful winds that can reach speeds of over 1,800 kilometers per hour. Despite that unimaginable force, the distant view remains serene, softened by Saturn's thick haze layers and the calming distance through which we observe them. Occasionally, faint lightning flickers deep within the cloud layers, lighting the atmosphere with a brief, ghostly glow. These storms can last for months, even years, rotating around the planet like luminous memories trapped within Saturn's dense gaseous envelope. As we continue our approach, the rings arc overhead, forming a vast halo that stretches far beyond the horizon. Their icy brilliance contrasts with the soft golden sphere below, making Saturn appear almost like a deity crowned with frozen light. Drifting through this tranquil gap, we prepare to enter the innermost ring regions and witness Saturn from an even closer vantage. The planet calls to us with its muted colors and ancient winds, inviting us deeper into its timeless realm. Now we near the threshold, where Saturn's rings give way to the planet's uppermost atmosphere. The transition is subtle at first, a shift in the quality of light, a growing softness in the golden glow, a delicate mistiness gathering across the edges of the world. Saturn's atmospheric veil is not a sharp boundary, but a gentle blending of gases and haze that thickens as we descend. Hydrogen and helium dominate the air here, forming layers that compress under their own weight. These gases create the soft gradients we saw from afar, smoothing the planet's surface into warm tones of gold, ivory, and pale amber. As we draw closer, faint textures emerge, small waves, bands, and subtle eddies that hint at enormous atmospheric processes unfolding beneath. The atmosphere reflects sunlight with a muted shimmer. Instead of sharp brightness, we see a warm, diffuse glow, like candlelight shining through thin silk. The effect is calming, a natural dimmer switch applied by the universe to encourage stillness and contemplation. Here, just above the cloud tops, Saturn appears peaceful. Yet we know that beneath this gentle facade lie colossal storms, jet streams, and winds whose speeds stretch the limits of the imaginable. This contrast between appearance and reality gives Saturn its poetic mystique, a giant that whispers while it moves worlds. Far below, we sense the faint presence of ammonia ice clouds, the highest and coldest of Saturn's atmospheric layers. These clouds can form vast, continent-sized sheets, drifting through the upper troposphere like silent continents of frost. Occasionally, turbulence breaks their symmetry, creating swirling patterns reminiscent of ink, diffusing through water. If we look upward, the rings still gleam across the sky, their arcs softened by atmospheric scattering. They appear dreamlike now, as though painted onto the heavens with delicate strokes. Their shadow falls across the planet in a wide, gentle band, an enormous reminder of the vast mechanical harmony at play. As we hover at the edge of this golden veil, we prepare to descend deeper, where Saturn's atmospheric mysteries await. Storms older than civilizations, winds shaped by distant sunlight, and patterns carved by forces we are only beginning to understand. For now, we rest in this suspended moment, held between the frozen clarity of the rings and the soft, swirling depths of Saturn's skies. We now begin a gentle, unhurried descent toward the highest visible clouds of Saturn. A descent not through air in the familiar sense, but through a vast, shifting ocean of gas. The transition feels smooth, almost imperceptible. The golden haze thickens around us, softening the rings above into pale strokes of shimmering light. Below, a faint texture forms, like the first hints of ripples on a calm lake at dusk. Saturn's cloud tops are composed primarily of ammonia ice, bright and reflective. From above, they resemble an endless, softly luminous quilt, stitched with gentle currents and broad, sweeping bands of muted color. The winds up here are swift, hundreds of kilometers per hour, but the immense scale of Saturn's atmosphere transforms that ferocity into elegant, elongated patterns. Motion becomes art, turbulence becomes serenity. As we hover closer, the cloud layers reveal their depth. Some regions glow faintly, where sunlight penetrates more deeply, while others appear shadowed, their forms shaped by complex interactions of temperature, chemistry, and pressure. There are no sharp borders, only gradients, merging and dissolving in ever-shifting harmony. Occasionally, small vortices drift across the surface, delicate spirals, reminiscent of cream, swirling through warm tea. These vortices are real storms, yet from here, they seem more like daydreams made visible. Their rotations are slow and hypnotic, each one following trajectories determined by the invisible interplay of Saturn's upper atmospheric jets. The silence is extraordinary. Even though violent winds howl beneath us, sound cannot travel through the near vacuum where we drift. All motion becomes ghost-like. Storms unfold silently. Clouds churn in total quiet. Saturn's vast atmosphere becomes a silent film, projected across an infinite golden screen. If we look upward, the rings cast their gentle shadow across the clouds, the shadow stretching thousands of kilometers. It moves so slowly that one could watch it for hours and see only the faintest shift. This grand, quiet interplay of light and shadow is one of Saturn's most meditative gifts, a cosmic sundial marking seasons that last more than 7 Earth years each. Our descent through this upper region prepares us for the deeper mysteries ahead. Bands of increasing complexity, storms that crackle with lightning, and energies that shape the very face of this ancient world. For now, We float above the first layer of Saturn's atmospheric cathedral, breathing in the calm of this softly glowing sea. As we drift lower into Saturn's atmosphere, we encounter the immense and graceful flows known as zonal jets, powerful streams of wind that encircle the planet in alternating east-west bands. These jets sculpt Saturn's appearance, creating the subtle stripes that wrap around the globe like ribbons spun from golden silk. Though the winds here can exceed 1,800 kilometers per hour, their motion feels dreamlike. Their long, continuous paths smooth turbulence into elongated curves that stretch for tens of thousands of kilometers. Where neighboring jets meet, the atmosphere blends the opposing motions into mesmerizing waveforms, patterns that look like fingers of cream drawn through honey. These jets are driven by deep internal heat and by the faint warmth of sunlight, a combination that fuels Saturn's constant atmospheric motion. Most planets show evidence of weather, but Saturn's zonal jets run deeper and stronger than almost any others in the solar system. They may extend thousands of kilometers beneath the cloud tops, forming a hidden rotating engine that sustains the planet's serene but persistent winds. From our vantage point, we can see the boundaries between neighboring jets. They appear as thin, wavy lines stretching around the planet, shimmering with soft gradations of color, slightly brighter golds, slightly deeper ambers. These lines drift slowly, bending and folding with a grace that belies the tremendous forces at work within them. Every so often, atmospheric eddies form along the jet boundaries, swirling like miniature galaxies. These vortices spin quietly, their centers cooling and darkening. As the gases spiral inward, they are fleeting, forming and dissolving over days or weeks, each one a temporary signature etched into Saturn's vast canvas. The deeper we observe, the more we recognize that these winds are not chaotic. They are structured, rhythmic, and ancient, following patterns that have endured for millions of years. Saturn rotates rapidly, once every 10 hours and 33 minutes, pulling its atmosphere into alignment with that swift spin. The planet's rotation acts like a conductor, guiding a planetary symphony of air. In this realm, motion becomes meditation. The endless flow of jet streams creates a quiet rhythm, a soft visual pulse that feels almost like breathing. And as we drift through this golden labyrinth of wind, we too fall into Saturn's steady, timeless cadence. Now we descend deeper still, into a region where Saturn reveals one of its most mesmerizing traits: storms that endure not for hours or days, but for decades, even centuries. Unlike Earth, where storms quickly expend their energy, Saturn's atmosphere is vast enough and fueled enough by internal heat that storms can circle the planet year after year. One of the first we encounter is a massive, swirling vortex spanning thousands of kilometers. From above, it resembles a slow, churning spiral of pale gold and cream, its arms curling gently around a darkened center. Lightning flashes deep within, illuminating the layers from below with a brief, ghostly glow. These lightning bolts are far more powerful than those on Earth, up to 1,000 times stronger, yet they are muffled completely by Saturn's thick atmosphere. Storms here are shaped by the meeting of powerful jet streams, by rising internal heat, and by the planet's rapid rotation. Because Saturn lacks solid ground, storms never crash or dissipate in the same abrupt way as on Earth. Instead, they drift, evolve, and sometimes merge with others, forming vast atmospheric sculptures that can last for generations. We drift alongside one of these long-lived tempests. Its outer bands move gracefully, forming broad, sweeping curves that wrap around much of the hemisphere. Closer to the center, the spiral tightens into narrower, faster-moving loops, swirling in a dance of energy and balance. These storms can take many forms: oval-shaped systems, ribbon-like disturbances, swirling eddies, even immense white ovals that outshine the surrounding clouds. Some storms reappear cyclically, emerging every Saturnian year or so, as though the planet exhales them with each long season. Despite their scale, there is something profoundly peaceful about watching them. Saturn's storms move without sound, without haste, and without the violent impressions we associate with weather on Earth. They drift like ancient thoughts carried across the surface of a sleeping mind. Here, suspended in calm observation, we are reminded that nature can be both powerful and tranquil, that even the most energetic phenomena can unfold with elegance when viewed across the vastness of planetary time. Every few decades, Saturn produces a storm so immense, so luminous, that it encircles the entire planet. The legendary Great White Storm, sometimes called Saturn's Great White Spot. These storms are rare, occurring roughly once per Saturnian year, or about every 30 Earth years, making each appearance a celestial event. Drifting gently above Saturn's cloud tops, we witness traces of this phenomenon in the atmospheric patterns below. The Great White Storm begins as a small bright plume, a bubble of rising ammonia-laden air that surges upward from deep within the planet's atmosphere. As the plume reaches the higher, colder layers, it expands dramatically, forming clouds so reflective that they appear brilliant white against Saturn's golden backdrop. From here, the storm spreads rapidly, driven by fierce jet streams that stretch the cloud material in both directions around the planet. Within weeks, the storm can wrap itself entirely around Saturn, creating a glowing band visible even from small telescopes on Earth. Imagine a storm so large it spans tens of thousands of kilometers, yet moves with the gentleness of drifting vapor. Lightning flashes deep inside as towering cloud structures collide and churn. But from the outside, it looks serene, a soft, pale swirl floating across the planet's surface like spilled cream drifting across warm tea. Scientists believe these storms are triggered when Saturn's deep atmosphere builds up enough heat to break through upper layers in a dramatic convective release. Like a geyser erupting after centuries of pressure, the atmosphere vents, sending rising columns of material upward in a vast planet-wide bloom. The aftermath is equally impressive. Once the storm dissipates, often after several months, it leaves long-lasting scars across Saturn's cloud layers, streaks of turbulence, and disrupted jet streams that remain visible for years. These remnants act as cosmic memory marks, reminders that even the calmest worlds have moments of awakening. As we float above the faded traces of one such past eruption, the atmosphere feels quiet again, as though Saturn is resting after a long exhale. And in this stillness, we sense the planet's rhythm. Not the rhythm of days or seasons, but of decades, of epochs, of cycles older than our own civilizations. Now we gently peer through the semi-transparent haze layers towards Saturn's deeper atmosphere, where colors shift from pale gold to muted amber and eventually to mysterious twilight blues. These lower regions are warmer, denser, and more dynamic than anything above them. Though we cannot descend physically, our perspective here allows us to sense the unfathomable forces playing out below. Beneath the ammonia ice clouds lies a second layer, composed primarily of ammonium hydrosulfide, forming darker clouds that absorb more sunlight. Deeper still, water clouds churn, massive structures hundreds of kilometers thick, swirling with heat rising from Saturn's interior. These deep convective cells are the engines of the storms we have been observing, lifting enormous plumes of material upward in cycles that span decades. The pressure here increases dramatically. At certain depths, the weight of the atmosphere becomes so immense that gases compress into exotic states. Hydrogen, normally a light and buoyant gas, begins to behave like a liquid. The deeper one goes, the stranger the physics becomes, culminating eventually far below in a hypothetical layer of metallic hydrogen where electrons flow freely, allowing the material to conduct electricity like metal. It is this metallic hydrogen, swirling in Saturn's deep interior, that likely generates the planet's magnetic field, a field surprisingly symmetrical, wrapping the planet in a protective bubble, much smoother and more uniform than Jupiter's turbulent magnetosphere. We cannot see these deep layers directly, but hints reveal themselves in the motions above, subtle color shifts in the cloud tops, the rise and fall of long-lived storms, the patterns of lightning. They are all surface signatures of the immense hidden world beneath. What we perceive from here is a gentle gradient of color and light, shading gradually downward, as though Saturn is fading into its own ancient dreams. The deeper we gaze, the more abstract the atmosphere becomes. Shapes blur, colors soften. Motion becomes a slow pulse, like the heartbeat of a sleeping titan. In this moment, hovering above these unseen depths, we feel the age of Saturn, not in years, but in cycles, in layers, in the quiet persistence of forces working over spans of time that dwarf human history. As we ascend towards Saturn's North Pole, something extraordinary begins to materialize through the golden haze. A shape so precise, so improbable, that it appears almost artificial. It is the famous Saturnian hexagon, a vast six-sided jet stream enclosing the planet's polar vortex, stretching nearly 30,000 kilometers across. This atmospheric structure is large enough to fit 4 Earths inside its borders. From above, the hexagon appears as a softly glowing geometric maze, etched into the planet's cloud tops. Its edges are remarkably straight, its corners gently rounded, yet unmistakably angular. The entire structure rotates with the planet, maintaining its shape with quiet persistence. Scientists believe the hexagon forms from a standing wave, a pattern locked into place by the interaction of atmospheric flows at different latitudes. Yet even knowing this, its visual perfection still feels otherworldly. As we drift closer, we observe the subtle gradations of color within its boundaries. The outer belts shimmer in muted golds, while the inner regions darken into hints of turquoise and slate. These colors reflect different chemical compositions and cloud depths, shaped by temperature and wind. Despite the storm's size, the motion within is elegantly smooth. Bands of gas slide past one another in slow, swirling arcs, moving with the fluid grace only a gas giant can produce. At the center of the hexagon spins the polar vortex, a deep, swirling cyclone resembling a great cosmic eye. Its clouds fold inward in spiraling patterns, creating a mesmerizing, hypnotic whirl. Lightning occasionally flickers deep within, illuminating the vortex like distant lantern flashes inside a cavern. Though the winds here can reach extraordinary speeds, the scale of the system transforms the violence into artistry. The vortex appears calm, its spirals broad and unhurried. Even the hexagon's boundaries, sites of intense shearing winds, look smooth and meditative when observed from a distance. Drifting gently above this polar cathedral, we sense the patient power of Saturn's atmosphere. The hexagon is not a momentary storm. It is a structure that has endured for decades, possibly centuries, outlasting space missions, generations, and entire eras of human discovery. In this place, geometry and weather fold into one, and we are reminded that nature often writes its most elegant equations in the language of clouds and wind. Leaving the hexagon behind, we drift outward, rising slowly above Saturn's cloud tops until the atmosphere thins into near vacuum again. Here, we enter the planet's magnetosphere, an enormous invisible bubble sculpted by Saturn's magnetic field. Unlike Jupiter's magnetosphere, which roars with radiation and turbulence, Saturn's is gentle, quiet, surprisingly symmetrical, and softer in its interactions. The magnetic field springs from deep within the planet, where hydrogen is compressed into a metallic state. This metallic hydrogen swirls and rotates, generating a smooth magnetic field that envelops the entire system, including many of Saturn's moons and much of the ring plane. From our vantage point, we cannot see the magnetic field directly, yet we sense its presence through the behavior of charged particles drifting along its lines. These particles come from the solar wind and from the volcanically active moon, Enceladus, which ejects vast amounts of water vapor into space. Once ionized, These particles follow the magnetic pathways, creating faint belts of plasma that drift and pulse with Saturn's rotation. Unlike Jupiter's stormy radiation zones, Saturn's belts are calmer and less hazardous, quiet highways of energy flowing through the darkness. Occasionally, the magnetosphere interacts with the solar wind in spectacular ways. Energetic particles spiral toward the poles, colliding with atmospheric gases and producing shimmering auroras. Saturn's auroras encircle the poles in glowing ovals, sometimes appearing as gentle arcs, other times as complex, twisting ribbons. Their colors tend to be ultraviolet, mostly invisible to human eyes. But in our imagination, we can paint them in soft blues and violet-white glimmers. Floating here, we feel the stillness of a world protected by an immense but tranquil shield. The magnetosphere deflects harmful, charged particles, maintaining the delicate balance that allows Saturn's atmosphere to evolve undisturbed. It even shapes the behavior of the rings, influencing the paths of dust grains and the faint electrical interactions that occur between icy particles. This vast magnetic cocoon reminds us that even invisible forces have architecture. It is a cathedral built not from stone or light, but from geometry, motion, and energy. Silent, persistent, and serene. Here, suspended between Saturn's atmosphere and the void, we drift through the quiet heart of this unseen structure, feeling its calm protection radiating out across millions of kilometers. From Saturn's magnetosphere, a distant orange glow begins to emerge against the dark. We turn toward it and set a gentle course. Slowly, the world grows larger, a soft sphere wrapped in dense haze. This is Titan, Saturn's largest moon, and one of the most intriguing places in the solar system. Titan is the only moon we know with a thick atmosphere, one even denser than Earth's. Its sky is filled with nitrogen, methane, and complex organic molecules, ingredients that echo the chemistry of our own planet billions of years ago. As we descend into Titan's upper atmosphere, the light dims. The sun becomes a muted pearl, hidden behind layers of orange mist. The air thickens around us, not harshly, but with a gentle, enveloping warmth. The haze glows softly, diffusing sunlight into a perpetual golden twilight. Shapes emerge slowly through the mist. The outlines of distant hills, the glints of lakes filled not with water, but with liquid methane and ethane. These hydrocarbon seas stretch across Titan's poles, smooth as glass and cold enough to freeze breath into crystal. As we drift closer to the surface, we notice complex branching patterns carved into the landscape. These are river channels. Yes, rivers created by methane rain that falls from Titan's thick clouds. It is a world where weather exists, where rainstorms come and go, where lakes fill and evaporate over long seasons. Despite the alien chemistry, Titan feels strangely Earth-like, echoing the ancient processes that shaped our own world long before life began. The surface itself is rugged and beautiful. Dunes made of organic particles stretch across equatorial regions in vast waves. Mountain ranges rise quietly from the haze, their forms softened by distance. Everything is muted, gentle, subdued, as though the entire moon exists inside a dream. The stillness of Titan is profound. Winds move slowly. Light is dim. Sounds are muffled by the thick atmosphere. Yet life's building blocks drift through the air and pool on the ground, waiting for energy and time. Titan is a reminder that worlds can be both familiar and alien, ancient and full of potential. Here, we sense the quiet promise of chemistry reaching towards something more, slowly, patiently, over aeons. Leaving Titan's warm glow behind, we glide toward a much smaller, colder moon, Enceladus, one of the most astonishing worlds in the solar system. From afar, it appears brilliant white, reflecting sunlight with the purity of freshly fallen snow. As we approach, we see that its surface is a mosaic of cracked ice, smooth plains, and long fractures known as tiger stripes. Despite its frozen exterior, Enceladus is alive with energy. From the South Pole, towering geysers erupt into space, releasing plumes of water vapor, ice grains, and organic molecules. These plumes rise hundreds of kilometers before falling back as snow or escaping entirely, feeding Saturn's E-ring with fresh material. As we drift through one of these geyser plumes, the particles sparkle around us like drifting stars. Each grain carries hints of the ocean beneath, a global sea of liquid water kept warm by tidal forces that flex Enceladus's interior. Beneath kilometers of ice lies a dark ocean, salty and dynamic, possibly heated by hydrothermal vents, similar to those in Earth's deep seas. The thought is profound. In this tiny moon, far from the warmth of the sun, conditions may exist that support microbial life. All the ingredients are present: water, chemistry, energy, and time. As the plume drifts past, we are reminded that life in the universe may not require sunshine or gentle climates. It may thrive in darkness, in warmth born from tidal friction, in oceans hidden beneath blankets of ice. The surface below us shows evidence of constant renewal. Few craters mar its plains, suggesting that Enceladus resurfaces itself regularly with fresh ice. Fractures crisscross the moon, glowing faintly blue where water vapor has refrozen. The entire landscape seems alive, not with organisms, but with motion, heat, and transformation. Enceladus, whispers of mysteries, still beyond reach. It invites curiosity, encourages wonder, and reminds us that even in the coldest corners of the cosmos, oceans may be waiting, dreaming silently in their hidden depths. Beyond Titan and Enceladus lies a wide, eclectic family of over 80 Saturnian moons, each with its own story etched into its surface. Tonight, we visit them not one by one, but as a constellation of quiet companions orbiting the ringed giant. Some, like Tethys, Dione, and Rhea, are smooth and pale, ancient worlds coated in bright ice, their surfaces marked by craters, valleys, and vast chasms carved by ancient tectonic shifts. These moons move through Saturn's shadow with serene precision, their surfaces glowing softly in reflected light. Tethys carries a great crater, Odysseus, large enough to warp its roundness. Dione holds wispy cliffs, bright streaks of exposed ice that shimmer like frozen lightning. Rhea drifts silently, wrapped in a thin veil of dust. Closer to the rings, Mimas appears, a small moon dominated by a great crater resembling an enormous eye. It is the moon responsible for clearing the Cassini division, guiding ring particles through gravitational rhythm. Despite its role in shaping Saturn's rings, Mimas itself is quiet and cold, locked in an eternal face-to-face orbit with its parent world. Further out, irregular moons such as Phoebe orbit on retrograde paths, their dark surfaces hinting at origins far from Saturn, perhaps captured from the distant Kuiper belt. These moons are rough, jagged, and primitive, remnants of primordial material untouched for billions of years. Each moon plays its part in Saturn's elegant dance. Their orbits create resonances that sculpt the rings, their gravities shape gaps and waves, and their interactions weave a dynamic tapestry across the entire system. Yet from our vantage point, drifting through the dark, they all appear gentle, quiet beads of ice and rock, circling a world of gold. In this outer realm, Saturn's moons feel like guardians, attending to the giant planet with unwavering devotion. Their movements are slow, ancient, predictable, a cosmic lullaby set in motion long before humans walked the Earth. Now we drift beneath Saturn's rings, gazing upward from the quiet space just above the cloud tops. From this perspective, the rings transform into a vast, translucent ceiling, spread across the sky like a frozen river of light. Each ring glows faintly, illuminated by sunlight, filtering through countless icy particles. The effect is breathtaking, delicate arcs suspended above us, shimmering softly, casting faint, lace-like shadows onto Saturn's atmosphere. These shadows stretch for thousands of kilometers, forming long, elegant stripes across the cloud tops. Depending on Saturn's season, the shadows shift in thickness and angle. Near equinox, they become razor-thin lines drawn across the planet. In deeper seasons, they widen, darkening entire regions of the atmosphere with gentle twilight. From below, the rings appear almost weightless. The thick ring lets through almost no light. Its shadow is bold and dark, a sweeping brushstroke across Saturn's golden skin. The A ring produces a slightly softer stripe, while the C ring, translucent and delicate, casts only the faintest whisper of shadow, like gauze draped across a lantern. These shadows are more than beautiful. They are dynamic. The interplay of light and darkness affects Saturn's atmosphere, altering temperatures and winds ever so slightly. Seasonal variations in ring shadows create subtle atmospheric responses, like a planet breathing in tune with its own celestial ornaments. As we continue drifting beneath this frozen canopy, the silence feels deeper, richer. The shadows move slowly across the clouds as Saturn rotates, creating a gentle planetary sundial that marks the passing of long seasons, each one lasting over 7 Earth years. Upward, the rings gleam with ancient motion. Downward, the atmosphere glows with muted gold. Around us, the shadows weave a quiet tapestry. In this suspended moment, we witness Saturn from one of the most serene vantage points available in the solar system, beneath its crown of ice, inside its gentle slumber of light and shadow. As we drift along the underside of the rings, we contemplate their mysterious beginnings. Saturn's rings appear ethereal and peaceful, but their origin story may lie in catastrophe, ancient collisions, or slow disintegration over millions of years. One theory suggests the rings were born from a shattered moon, a world torn apart by Saturn's gravity when it drifted too close. As the moon broke apart, its rocky core may have fallen inward while its icy outer layers scattered, forming the brilliant rings we see today. Over time, collisions ground the ice into the shimmering particles, now flowing around the planet in delicate streams. Another theory envisions the rings as remnants from the early solar system, primordial material that never coalesced into a moon. In this version, the rings are fossils of formation, frozen in orbit for billions of years, preserving the ancient dust and ice from which planets themselves once formed. A third, more recent idea suggests the rings might be relatively young, only 100 million years old, born when a massive ice-rich moon was destabilized by gravitational interactions with neighboring moons. Slowly pulled apart, it spilled its icy body into orbit, where Saturn sculpted it into the rings we admire today. Regardless of their origin, the rings are not static. They evolve continuously. Micrometeoroids darken the ice over time. Moons open gaps, create wakes, generate waves. Even Saturn's magnetic field influences the smallest particles, charging them, lifting them, altering their orbits in subtle ways. Some researchers believe the rings may be gradually fading, losing material as particles spiral inward towards Saturn or drift outward into space. If so, these icy arcs represent a temporary artwork, a celestial masterpiece, painted across only a portion of the planet's long history. And yet, for us, drifting through their glow tonight, they feel eternal, timeless as starlight, peaceful as distant snowfall. The rings' past may be debated, but their present beauty is undeniable. They are a reminder that the universe often transforms destruction into wonder, chaos into harmony, and shattered worlds into soft, shimmering necklaces of ice. Even while Saturn's rings encircle the planet in graceful loops, they also form a quiet connection downward, a snowfall of charged ice particles drifting slowly towards Saturn's atmosphere. Scientists call this ring rain, a gentle but constant transfer of material from the rings onto the planet itself. This phenomenon occurs because sunlight and Saturn's magnetic field charge the tiny ice grains in the rings. Once charged, the particles interact with magnetic field lines that dip into the planet's atmosphere. Carried along these invisible pathways, the grains begin a long, slow descent. By the time they reach Saturn's upper layers, they vaporize, altering the chemical composition of the atmosphere. This process is incredibly delicate. Imagine flakes of powdered ice, smaller than grains of sand, falling silently through space, following curved magnetic pathways as though guided by invisible hands. These particles gently merge with Saturn's gases, creating subtle changes detectable only through sensitive instruments. Ring rain also plays a role in shaping the ring's evolution. As particles fall inward and vanish into the atmosphere, the rings lose mass. Over millions of years, this gradual snowfall may thin them significantly, contributing to the idea that Saturn's rings are not permanent features, but transient, evolving structures. From our perspective, drifting just beneath the rings, this snowfall appears almost magical. Tiny specks of ice shimmer as they descend, catching faint sunlight and glowing for a moment before vanishing into Saturn's haze. The movement is barely perceptible, so slow and gentle that it feels like watching the quiet settling of dust in a sunbeam. This celestial snow binds the rings and the planet in a shared cycle, a soft, continuous exchange between the icy halo above and the golden world below. It is a reminder that even in the grand emptiness of space, processes of erosion, renewal, and gentle transformation unfold without haste. Saturn receives these grains like memories drifting down from its own past, while the rings continue their ageless dance overhead, losing only the smallest whisper of themselves with each passing moment. As we drift upward again, leaving the soft snowfall of ring particles behind, we turn our attention to Saturn's seasons, which unfold with the slow majesty only a distant giant can experience. One full orbit around the Sun takes nearly 29.5 Earth years, meaning each Saturnian season lasts more than 7 years, long enough for an entire childhood or a full chapter of a human life. These long seasons shape everything: the color of the atmosphere, the angle of ring shadows, the behavior of storms, and even the chemistry of Saturn's clouds. During solstice, one hemisphere leans toward the sun, bathing its clouds in steady, angled light. Meanwhile, the other hemisphere falls into deep, lingering twilight, its storms evolving under different thermal conditions. The rings also play a dramatic role during each season. As Saturn tilts, the rings shift their orientation relative to the sun, changing how much light they reflect and how deeply their shadows fall across the atmosphere. For several years at a time, one hemisphere may be cloaked in delicate ring shadows, while the other lies open beneath unobstructed sunlight. As equinox approaches, a rare moment occurring only twice during Saturn's long year, the sun aligns directly with the ring plane. Shadows shrink into razor-thin lines. The rings themselves dim, no longer catching sunlight at a reflective angle. During this period, waves and structures within the rings become more visible, highlighted by the soft grazing illumination. Saturn's seasons also affect the planet's storms. In some years, cloud bands brighten as sunlight increases. In others, deep convective storms rise from the lower atmosphere, fueled by long buildups of heat. Titan experiences its own seasonal changes, with methane rains shifting from one hemisphere to the other over decades. These slow cycles remind us that time behaves differently on distant worlds. Nothing is rushed. Transitions unfold over years. Light returns gradually. Darkness lingers like a long, peaceful night. To witness these seasons from above is to experience a rhythm far older and deeper than anything on Earth. A rhythm measured not in minutes or hours, but in decades of golden dawns and lingering twilight. Our journey nears its end. Slowly, gracefully, We rise above the rings once more, drifting into the calm darkness, where Saturn appears as a grand glowing sphere, crowned by its shimmering halo. From this distance, the storms and moons and shadows blend into a single serene portrait, a world both powerful and peaceful, ancient and ever-changing. The rings extend outward, like luminous wings. Titan glows with its amber haze. Enceladus waits quietly in its orbit, whispering secrets from its hidden ocean. The hexagon rotates steadily at the North Pole, its geometry unbroken by time. Beneath the haze, storms churn softly, sculpting golden clouds that have witnessed centuries of cosmic motion. As we watch Saturn shrink slowly below, we carry with us the memory of drifting among its rings, tracing the paths of shepherd moons, floating above storms older than history, gliding through Titan's ancient atmosphere, and listening to the silent snowfall of ring particles across the golden sky. The journey has shown us a world that moves at a different pace, measured in long seasons, vast distances, and cycles that outlast generations. Saturn teaches patience, calm, and the quiet beauty of enduring rhythm. Now, as Saturn becomes a distant pearl once more, its rings thinning into a delicate ellipse of pale light, we carry its serenity with us. The universe feels larger yet gentler, its movements slow and harmonious. The ring giant fades into the velvet dark, but its calming presence remains, settling into the mind like a soft, steady breath. Thank you, deeply and sincerely, for drifting through this long Saturnian journey. Every listener, every dreamer who joins these explorations helps the channel grow and reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Your presence brings these cosmic stories to life. I'm truly grateful you're here. And now, our journey comes to rest. The rings grow distant, the golden storms fall silent, the moons retreat into their ancient orbits. The universe softens into a quiet hum, and you drift with it, floating gently toward your own place of rest, carrying the calm of Saturn's timeless winds in your breath. Tonight, the cosmos sleeps, and so peacefully do you.